On this episode of Locked On Angels, the Halos are winners of 7 in a row. Taylor Ward hits a go-ahead grand slam, his second of the road trip. Logan O'Hoppe has his 14th home run. The Halos did a lot of good, and there are some things that need to be cleaned up. We're going to share both today. Plus, Jeremiah Geiger from Locked On Marlins is going to join us to get us ready for this weekend against the Marlins. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're the best team in the world. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to get back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On Everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube and leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And this episode of Locked On Angels is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers like you can get $200 in bonus bets when you place your first $5 bet and you win.
Happy Friday to you, and thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
It's our 4th season as the host of Locked On Angels, talking Angels baseball with you every single weekday, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. On today's show, we're getting together with our friend Jeremiah Geiger of Locked On Marlins to get ready for the weekend. We're going to grill some fish, Mike. We're going to grill him and ask some questions, and then he's going to ask us questions about our Halos so that Marlins fans can know what they're getting into against the Angels. But first, how about 7 in a row? Welcome to Locked On 7 in a row. I love the sound of that, Mike.
I love that too. John, let's talk about that game yesterday. Let's talk first about the lineup. Tim Anderson was in there. He played second base. Kevin Newman was back in there, played third base, and then Kyron Paris was in center field. No Rengifo and no Moncada. Wash said that he wanted to give Moncada an extra day off, and then in the course of the conversation, he did say that Moncada aggravated his thumb Tuesday night on his swing. Now, he did pinch hit for Tim Anderson later and had a key RBI. John, 17 RBIs and like 71 at-bats for this guy. Is this what it's like to have a productive third baseman on your favorite team? I mean, this is exciting. We haven't had this since, Sean Figgins? I think Sean Figgins was the guy that we got to celebrate at third base before this, right?
Well, yeah, David Freese in 2014, 2015, and then we had Yunel Escobar for a while over there at third base, and he wasn't bad at the plate either. But yeah, I mean, the third base black hole has been filled by the fact that Yoan Moncada has been playing some really good baseball and hitting the ball really well up at the plate.
Yeah, so there's really 2 stories that happened in this game yesterday. One is pitching, the other is hitting. John, let's start with pitching. Tyler Anderson was on the mound, and he was frustrated, and we were frustrated with him because he didn't have command. And if you listen closely on the broadcast, the TV side, you could hear that he didn't have command because every time he threw a ball, he let the world know how upset he was, right?
He was just shouting fun over and over again. I didn't think he was having fun. Yeah, He did not have his command in this one, Mike. 4 2/3 innings pitched, 7 hits, 4 earned runs, 6 walks, and no strikeouts on 99 pitches. He allowed a bases loaded run by walking it in the 5th inning. Hunter Strickland allowed another one to come in with a walk after relieving Anderson. So that made it 5-2 A's in that 5th inning. This is after he gave up a 3-run home run in the 1st inning. The Angels cut into that lead, that deficit, made it 3-2 A's. But then, in the 5th inning, he let that one get away. 5-2 A's by the 5th inning. He just wasn't fooling anybody. He had 3 whiffs in the entire game, 2 on the changeup, 1 on the 4-seam, just 9 called strikes. And that is good for a 12% called strike plus whiff rate. So, man, just not a good outing from Tyler Anderson. And you could tell he was frustrated.
Yeah, and then through 8 innings, Angels pitching issued 10 walks and 10 hits, 20 base runners. They gifted them 10, and then they earned 10. Good news is that despite Detmers allowing the first 2 to reach when he came in, he gets a double play behind him, and then he strikes out Langoliers to end the 7th inning. John, the double play was really the Angels' best friend yesterday and has been in this series. They have the most double plays turned behind them so far this season by a wide margin. And then Ryan Zephyr-John came in, followed suit with a walk and then a single. And then, Johnny, another double play. And Zephyr-John then got a strikeout, and he got a strikeout with something that we've talked about now 3 consecutive shows.
Come on.
He used his four-seam fastball that he wasn't using over the weekend and against the Padres, why he struggled. And yesterday he went back to that again, and he's had a lot of success on that, hasn't he?
Yeah, he absolutely has. That's what got him out of that jam. And I mean, it wasn't really a jam, but he did have the double play and a runner on third, and he got that strikeout with a four-seam. So great to see him work through that. And that was after a conversation with Barry Enright. So you kind of wonder there if that was the case. Fortunately, the Angels were able to battle back. A 5-run 7th inning helped the Angels come back from down 5-2 all the way to 7-5.
Unreal.
And with Kevin Newman having a nice little single, he had himself a nice little day. Mike, Kevin Newman single, Paris struck out, Neto singled, Shawnowell walked to load the bases, and then Taylor Ward hits a grand slam, a go-ahead grand slam, to make it 6-5, his second on the road trip. Man, what a road trip. I dropped him in fantasy like 2 weeks ago, and I'm going to keep him on the bench. I'm not going to take him back because I'm afraid I'll jinx it, right?
Right. Well, I mean, and the thing that we've talked about on this show is that Taylor Ward is a guess hitter, and right now he's guessing right. But John, what I saw in Taylor Ward yesterday was something that this team has done against the Dodgers and then, of course, against the A's that they weren't doing prior to that. And they weren't swinging at pitches that weren't hittable pitches. They weren't chasing as often. And the guy that was guilty of that probably more than anybody else is Taylor Ward. He'll chase that ball low and away. He'll chase that ball high and away. And he'll even chase the ball that's high and out of the strike zone. Mm-hmm. And he just hasn't been doing that, John. He's really been waiting for his pitch, and he's crushing it. Johnny Washington's philosophy is get your pitch and end the at-bat. And the example of that, he needs to get the videotape of Taylor Ward and just play this for the entire team, especially if they start struggling again. And the videotape will show them what it looks like to actually work for your pitch and then end the at-bat like Taylor Ward did yesterday. That grand slam was to dead center field, and he is just seeing the ball so well. They interviewed him after the game. Erica Weston talked to him. Taylor Ward's not a great interview, by the way, but they interviewed him after the game, and he just said, I'm really seeing things well. The excitement is high. He said, my confidence level is high. And he said, I'm a bit more relaxed at the plate. And you can see that in his hands. You can see that in his movement. He looks like the Taylor Ward that busted out of the gate just a few years ago. And that's the Taylor Ward that we've seen these last few games. But the power, John, the power and it coming in very short bursts has been something that has been really eye-popping to watch the last few games.
Yeah, after he hit that grand slam, Jorge Soler had a strikeout, but then O'Hoppe goes opposite field with a home run to add another run. So it was 7-5 Angels at the end of the top of the 7th. Then in the top of the 9th, Mike, Carlos Duran, the A's reliever, suddenly he had the issues that the Angels pitchers had. He walks Ward and Soler. O'Hoppe singles back up the middle. And then with the bases loaded, Joe Adell walks in a run, makes it 8-5. Hogan Harris comes in for the A's to give up a sac fly to Yoan Moncada. Remember, he pinch hit for Tim Anderson earlier in the game, so that made it 9-5. And then Kevin Newman singles the other way. Really great high fastball on the outside of the zone, and he just punches it right through between first and second base, makes it 10-5. And because the Angels had that 5-run lead, they were able to just go to Connor Brogdon to finish the game. They had Hector Neris warming up for the save instead of Kenley Jansen, but now they can save both of those guys for the Marlins series. Brogdon gets 2 strikeouts and a ground out to end it. They wrap up this road trip. They got this 10-5 win, 8-2 on the road trip, back-to-back sweeps of the Dodgers and the A's. Mike, 54 runs across the 7-game win streak. You got to like that if you're an Angels fan. We certainly do here on Locked On Angels. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up, what do Angels fans need to know about the Marlins this upcoming weekend as the Fish come to town? We're going to bring in Jeremiah Geiger of Locked On Marlins, and we're going to grill some fish. We're going to grill him and ask him some questions. We'll get to that coming right up.
Well, the NBA playoffs are in full swing, and that Indiana-New York game from a couple of nights ago was wild. And I loved that Reggie Miller was there to call that game because the Knicks choked, and then they threw pictures back and videos back of when Reggie Miller made them choke. Like he brought them back and won the game for the Pacers. It was so much fun to watch. And you can get involved in any NBA game right now in the playoffs and really follow along really closely and maybe win some money with FanDuel, whether it's a game-winning shot or maybe a breakout player. There's never been a better time to get in on all of the action with FanDuel. And they're making it really easy before the tip-off or even live during the game with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans can get involved in any possible way and win some money. And you're a smart fan. You're an everydayer. You're here, ball. So you should download the FanDuel app and you should start winning. And now's the perfect time to do that. Head to FanDuel.com. And if you place your first $5 bet, if it wins, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets from FanDuel. So make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Really excited right now to bring in our friend Jeremiah Geiger from Locked On Marlins. Jeremiah, welcome in, my friend. So great to have you here on Locked On Angels.
John and Mike, it's a pleasure to join the show. A little crossover action and preview a series, a little inter-league division rivalries aside. It's none of that. Marlins don't know the Angels. Angels don't know the Marlins. Let's talk some baseball.
I love that.
We want to take this first segment to ask you questions about your team. And then, of course, we'll give you the chance to ask Mike and I about the Halos and what maybe Marlins fans want to know or need to know about the Angels. But the reason why we're doing this is because, they're playing this 3-game set this weekend. Of course, they got Sandy Alcantara going on Friday. I believe it's Cal Quantrill on Saturday, and then Edward Cabrera on Sunday. So some good names that people know, certainly. But Alcantara has not been the Alcantara that we all kind of hoped he would be coming back from injury, right, Jeremiah?
Yeah, it's the biggest storyline, I would say, of the Marlins season so far is Sandy Alcantara coming off of Tommy John surgery in spring training looked great. The stuff was there, the velocity was there, and he just hasn't put it together. It reminds me a lot of 2023, in which you see him showcase his stuff, and then one bad inning, he can't execute, runners get on base, one big hit drives in the runs, that elevates the box score. It's been frustrating to watch. It's been frustrating for him because he's a competitor. And in the bigger scheme of things, the Marlins as an organization, this is kind of affecting their plans because Sandy Alcantara is a potential trade candidate and they want to maximize his value. So it's very important that he gets some momentum going over the next couple of months.
Now, the Angels have been really good at making sure that they're in the game against the starter. And then like yesterday against the A's, they were in there against Severino, close enough to get within striking distance, then knocking him out in about the 6th inning, and then going after the bullpen. And they've done that against the Dodgers, and they've done that against the Padres. So tell me about the Marlins bullpen. If we knock out the starter and we have to go against that bullpen, are you confident in that bullpen? Are they struggling in that bullpen? Tell me the story, the narrative around the bullpen right now with the Marlins.
Yeah, so the bullpen, it's not set in stone. Everybody is flexible. There's not one set role. We have high leverage guys. Anthony Bender's been here for a few years. Calvin Fauché has great stuff. You have Jesus Tinoco. He's gotten the opportunity to close games. But with new manager Clayton McCullough and how the president of baseball operations, Peter Bendix, operates things, they run a very analytical driven mindset. And so you're going to see your high leverage guys come in the 5th inning, in the 6th inning. They will rotate closers. It depends on matchups. So going into any given game, I can't confidently tell you if the Marlins have a 2-1 lead, this guy's going to close the game. That's not how I like to see it. In years past, we had guys like Tanner Scott, AJ Puck. You just kind of pencil them in the 8th and 9th, and you live and die by the sword. You go with your best guys. I do want to shout out Ronnie Enriquez. He's a name that not a lot of people know. He's averaging 12.17 Ks per 9 on the season. He's got a nasty sweeper. He was DFA'd by the Twins, and the Marlins got him off of waivers this offseason. he is becoming a real weapon for the Marlins. You'll probably see him this series.
Looking forward to that. Absolutely. Yeah, it seems like, if they're going to face maybe the 2, 3, 4 hitters in the lineup, it sounds like they'll bring in the guy that they trust the most in that situation rather than, this guy closes the ninth inning. Yeah, that makes sense. So tell me, because I've been hosting Locked On MLB Game Night for about 2 months now, and watching your recaps after each game, I feel like there's a new name, a new hero, somebody that maybe the wider audience of Major League Baseball might not know. Right now, I know Agustin Ramirez was really hot there and still continues to just hit really well. I think, was it Jesus Sanchez a couple of nights ago against the Cubs, leads off the game with a home run and then gets the walk-off double to beat the Cubs. So it's fun to see. Of course, I'm a big Xavier Edwards fan. I know he's on the IL right now, but I took him in fantasy because I need those stolen bags, baby. But it's fun to see a good young Marlins team and this team come together. Are they going to do what they did a few years ago where they, trade Yelich and they trade Giancarlo and all of these guys, you get excited about them down in Miami and then all of a sudden they're trading everybody away again. What's the future outlook of this team look like to you?
So I got to preface this with saying back in 2023, when the Marlins made the playoffs, none of these guys were on that team. Agustin Ramirez, Kyle Stowers, Norby is another one. It was kind of aging veterans. And when 2024 didn't start well, Peter Bendix and company decided, you know what, we're going to tear it down. It was a very unpopular decision. There was a lot of fans that said, yes, let's do it. We need to rebuild the farm system. Other fans were like, why don't you at least try? I was one of those fans. But you look at the Marlins currently constructed, they're very, very young. None of these players you see performing, aside from Jesus Sanchez, I would say, on the position side, are a candidate to be traded. Kyle Stowers and Connor Norby were acquired last year in the Trevor Rogers deal with the Orioles. You had Agustin Ramirez from the Yankees. He was a prospect, made his major league debut. So they're establishing a nice core. Now, there's still plenty of work to be done, but at the deadline, last year they traded a third of their roster. I kid you not, a third of their roster left, literally on trade deadline day. They had to make roster moves the day of the deadline to just field a team. Yeah. So this year I expect a couple trades. You're going to see some bullpen pieces move because the bullpen's always volatile. You're going to probably see Sandy Alcantara move. And that's about it. Maybe Jesus Sanchez, but the core of this team, it's starting to show signs like it's coming together, which is a great sign.
Tell me about, as we talk about this weekend, tell me about the core of this team offensively. What should we as Angel fans be worried about as our pitchers go up against your starting nine and even some of your bench guys? Where are we going to find a bit of a struggle? Where are we going to find issues?
Who do we need to walk, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Well, we don't have Barry Bonds, so I'm going to leave him out of this conversation. But I got to start with Kyle Stowers. Kyle Stowers has been incredible for the Marlins. He was awful last year. And in spring training, it wasn't even a guarantee he would break camp with the Marlins. Like, that is how big a difference his production was from a season ago. He's incredible. He's hitting about 300. He has a lot of power. He can hit the ball to all fields. The biggest thing for Stowers, his aggression, he attacks pitches in the zone. So if you throw him anything close to the plate, he's going to put a swing on it, and usually it's a good one. The other player, Agustin Ramirez, made his major league debut about a month ago. He has power like I have not seen before, maybe since the Stanton days. Like, this guy can hit the ball a country mile. He hits the ball extremely hard. So even the outs are just hard contact, 110 miles an hour exit velocity. Those two have been really good. Now, as a collective unit, they don't have a lot of power. Like, the power production just isn't there. They acquired Matt Mervis from the Chicago Cubs in the offseason. He's had 7 home runs. He looked like he was figuring it out and then just fell off a cliff. I mean, he is hitting under 200. Jesus Sanchez, as much as I like Sanchi, he's a fan favorite because of his personality. He's just a goofy player out there. He's not really producing in terms of power. He is the biggest Marlins power threat. He only has 2 home runs. So in order to provide threats to the Angels and score some runs, they got to hit with runners in scoring position. That's the biggest thing. They will get hits, they'll get walks, but if you're leaving runners on base, it doesn't matter. And that's where you see the Marlins lose, and they only put up 2 runs and dropped the series to the White Sox a couple weeks ago. Runners in scoring position is the key.
I'm thinking about the Angels, and they have a lot of young talent: Logan O'Hoppe, Zach Neto, Nolan Shonwell, a lot of young pitching, Jose Soriano, who you'll get to see. But they surrounded those young guys with veterans like Kyle Hendricks. Of course, Tyler Anderson is a veteran pitcher as well. Travis d'Arnaud behind the dish. Is there anybody that has like that veteran presence, that leadership, or somebody to guide the young guys along with the young Marlins players that you guys have?
Yeah, that's a great question because they're so young and inexperienced. I would say Jesus Sanchez, he's been with the Marlins since 2019. I believe He came to the organization 2020. That's about it. So he's the veteran of the position players. And then on the pitching side of things, it's Sandy Alcantara. He's the leader. He is the ace. Everybody looks up to Sandy, and it hurts when he's struggling like he has been this season. Besides those two, they brought in Cal Quantrill this offseason. That was the only free agent signing. 2 years ago, it was Tim Anderson. That didn't work out well for us. I know you guys know Tim Anderson now. But Quantrill hasn't been too good either. He did pitch an immaculate inning his last game out, which was kind of crazy to see. So didn't expect that. So really, it's about building a culture. They're going to battle. They're going to compete. But there's really not these established veterans like the Angels have who are leading the charge. It's young guys coming together with a new manager and finding an identity.
It's a fun place to be. That's right. That's for sure. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Coming into this weekend, what's the momentum or lack of momentum that the Marlins have right now? What has the story been the last maybe 5 or 6 games? And are they desperate for a win, or are they on a winning streak? Give us the story there.
Yeah, so they hit a little bit of a rough patch last week. Or 2 weekends ago when they dropped 2 out of 3 to the White Sox. Going into that, everybody felt like they should win that series. They didn't. And then the next weekend, Tampa Bay, the Citrus series, they took 2 out of 3 from Tampa. So it was good to see because Tampa's a well-run organization. Even though the Sandy Alcantara start, they lost that. They got shut out 4-0. The bats started to come alive. This Chicago series that just happened against the Cubs are a great team. And on paper, it looks like they kind of steamrolled Miami, but it really wasn't the case. The Marlins won the first game. That second game was 14-1, but 6 of those runs came against a position player in the 9th inning when Miami threw the towel in. And the other 8 came in the 6th inning in which Fauché just got blown up. But Ryan Weathers made a really good start. His return to the rotation has been huge in the first couple of games. And then that last game was a pitching duel. You got to score runs. They lost 2-1. So I feel like they're in a good spot because they're competing apart from that middle game of the Cubs series. And that's what I expect them to do versus the Angels, is just go out and compete.
I got to tell you, I'm really glad that we don't have to face Ryan Weathers or Max Meyer this weekend. I think we dodged a bullet there. We're going to continue our conversation. Jeremiah is going to ask us questions. What do Marlins fans need to know about the Angels this weekend? We'll get into that coming right up. We're grateful to have Jeremiah Geiger of Locked On Marlins here with us on Locked On Angels. And of course, we're doing a little cameo on Jeremiah's episode of Locked On Marlins. So Jeremiah, ask away, my friend. It's time for you to ask us about the Angels, whether that's around this current team, or questions you have about like what the heck happened between Trout and Ohtani and Rendon, whatever you want, man. Anything is on the table. We're ready to go.
Yeah, the first question I got is pretty simple. It's the Angels are establishing a core. You mentioned Logan O'Hoppe. You mentioned Zach Neto. I know me and Mike were talking about that right before we recorded, how great Neto has been. I picked him up in fantasy today. He's good somehow man. He was available. But what's the core looking like for the Angels? Because I assume Tyler Anderson isn't in the long-term plans for the team. Who are the guys that are here to stay, much like the Marlins are trying to figure out?
Yeah, after this year, Tyler Anderson will be a free agent, so you might even see him dealt at the deadline. But the Angels actually have done a lot to acquire some pitching depth the last couple of years, whether that's through the draft or some of the trades that they've made. Last year, they traded Luis Garcia to the Red Sox at the deadline and got 4 players back. They got Matthew Lugo. They got George Clausen, who is a top-rated prospect in the Angels system, who is a starting pitcher. They got Sam Aldeguerri as well. And then they got a fourth. They got Ryan Zephyr-John, who's currently in the bullpen for the Angels, somebody that Mike and I are huge fans of. They, of course, have Caden Dana developing in the minor leagues. He just moved up to AAA this year. He's made an appearance here or there for the Angels, but he's him and Christian Moore, who they drafted last year. They're the 1 and 2 top prospects in the Angel system. So believe it or not, the Angels have some good young pitching on the way, in addition to arms like Jack Kohanowitz and Jose Soriano, who are currently in the rotation. And then Reed Detmers, who's been around for a while, still hasn't really found it as a starter. And so they actually moved him to the bullpen. Mike and I are of the belief that he needs to get reps as a starter. His talents are being wasted, but his problem has been mind games. He just can't get out of his own head. He can get to 2 strikes and then all of a sudden it's 3-2, and then he can get to 2 outs and can't get the last guy out. So it's just a lot of mental hurdles for Reed Detmers. But again, in addition to the young guys that you mentioned, there's some good starting pitching on the way for these Halos.
Yeah, we've talked often about how the Halos will be a team in 2026 that will be competitive and probably try to get to the playoffs because of the young core that they do have. One point of correction, John, it was Jefferson Vargas got traded. It was Aldeguerri from the Phillies, but that was another great trade. They sent Estevez to the Phillies, and they got Sam Aldeguerri and George Clausen, and then they got Jefferson Vargas from the Red Sox in that Luis Garcia trade. So they really are quote unquote stockpiled, and it's just a matter of those guys actually performing. And with the Angels, we're going to see them a lot sooner rather than later, because similar to the Marlins, they just bring up their guys and let them have an opportunity, and that's why we're seeing success from Zach Neto and Nolan Shonowell and Logan O'Hoppe.
And speaking of that starting pitching this weekend, I know the Marlins are throwing Sandy, they're throwing Cabrera on Sunday, and Quantrill in that middle game. Who are the Angels pitching, and who should we watch out for the most? Who has the opportunity to do the most damage?
Yeah, they got Jose Soriano on Friday, and then I believe it's Kikuchi on Saturday. Of course, everyone is aware of Yusei Kikuchi, who hasn't found a win yet, but has certainly deserved a win. It's not been his fault that the games haven't gone in his favor in terms of decisions. But yeah, Jose Soriano, man, is somebody that we really, really like. And every now and then, he might not have it. He might not have his feel for his pitches, but he's got a nasty sinker, but he also can generate a lot of strikeouts too. So he's kind of a double threat. He'll get the ground ball double play behind him, or he can strike it out because he just has a ton of velocity. On Sunday, I'm trying to think, would it be Kohanowitz again?
No, it's Kyle Hendricks.
It's Kyle Hendricks. Okay.
Kikuchi, Soriano, and then I believe Kyle Hendricks. I'm going to check on that in a moment. But I think Kyle Hendricks, I mean, Marlins fans are going to know about Kyle Hendricks because of his National League ties. But the biggest thing with Kyle Hendricks that we have noticed is that his location is top notch. They call him the professor, obviously. And he's somebody that has really been very good for the Angels. Not stats wise, but he has been good at making his spots count, hitting his spots, which are great. Yeah, Kikuchi's going to go in tonight's game. Then it's Soriano, and then we've got Hendricks on Sunday. So Soriano's just a ground ball king, and so if there's no launch angle with opposing hitters as they go against Soriano, if you can get a bit of a launch angle, you can hit him out, and you can hit some of the gaps. But he is really good in leading the league in ground balls and in double plays behind him.
Now, for Marlins fans, there's a lot of frustrations with ownership. Bruce Sherman just hasn't spent the money required to field a competitive team. Now, on the flip side of things, for the Angels, Artie Moreno does spend money. It's just ill-advised spending. Right. Talk about the ownership, if you will, and kind of explain to Marlins fans if there's any similarities and what's going on with the ownership and front office.
I'll take you all the way back to when he first bought this team. And of course, they were coming off the World Series victory. But the thing is, what's ironic about it all is that Disney couldn't wait to sell the team. But Disney also let the baseball people do baseball things. They stay out of the baseball business. And so you had a GM like Bill Stoneman making really great decisions. They had a great scouting department. And then over the years, the scouting department sort of dwindled away. The player development sort of dwindled away, but more money was going toward your Gary Matthews Juniors and your Josh Hamiltons and your Albert Pujols. And so they were spending, but like you said, not always spending wisely and on the right players. And recently, look, I know Rendon gets piled on because he doesn't show up to games and he can't play and he's always hurt. But the Angels needed a third baseman. And when they signed him in late 2019, it was like, sweet, this is great. He's coming off the World Series run. He's been great his whole career. So injuries have really been his problem. But really, when it comes down to it, Artie Moreno inherited a great system and has spent money in the wrong direction. Now, it feels like GM Perry Manassian is trying to get back to those sorts of things with player development, trying to get back to those sorts of things with, scouting department and trying to sign really good players, in Latin America and things like that. But again, it feels like the Angels have to win despite themselves and despite Artie Moreno. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think that that's been the biggest narrative for the Angels right now is that when Artie spends, it's not like he's not spending. He's just spending in areas that are not necessarily helpful for the entire team. Like there was a whole conversation when Trey Turner was a free agent that came out and Artie shared this. Artie said, I wanted Trey Turner and told Perry Manassian, let's go get him. And then Perry was like, well, here's the resource it'll take. Or we could get 4 guys that could actually split up that resource that could really help our team. And so Artie stepped back and let Perry do that. Now, would it have been great to have Trey Turner? Absolutely. But we probably wouldn't have Zach Neto playing right now on our team. And so what they did is they split it up. Now, Artie has a playground of resource that Perry Manassian can use. And often that playground of resource is not a lot. So you end up getting maybe B+ players, right? But you have to spend a little bit more for that. So Yusei Kikuchi is great. He's our ace, but he's probably a 3 or 4 on another team. And so that's been the biggest issue with the Angels. The best part about being a fan of this team right now is that we have a lot of guys that are developing that we can really get excited about. And if we're going to have an ace, it's going to come from the minor leagues, a Caden Dana, a George Clausen, a Sam Aldeguerri, one of those guys, because we're not going to go and spend the money. Artie even is on record saying, why would I give $50 million or whatever $1 million to a guy that plays once every 5 days? Why would I do that? And all fans went, are you kidding me?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Last question I got really comes down to the last decade, because when I first started getting into baseball, Mike Trout was the face of the MLB. And he was a LA Angel, which was kind of unique because usually the faces of baseball come from the Yankees, the Dodgers, those huge popular teams. Trout's been an Angel his whole career. Then they signed some guy named Shohei Ohtani. And I was like, they got the 2 best players in the universe and they didn't make the playoffs.
Right.
What went wrong?
Yeah. Go for it, Mike.
Well, 30% of the games that Rendon and Trout and Ohtani played in over the last 5, they've played in 30% of the games together. So of the 100% of the games they could have played in, they played in 30% of those games.
Yeah.
Meaning that they just weren't on the field together. Trout and Ohtani weren't on the field together. Trout, Rendon, and Ohtani weren't on the field together. And when Ohtani started becoming who he is, because he wasn't that until 2021, Trout started getting hurt. And so when Trout was really great, 2019, 2020, Ohtani was hurt. And then when Rendon came in, 2020, he was good, but it was a COVID year. And then the next year, he started getting hurt. So ultimately, it really boils down to they weren't on the field together.
Yeah.
And they never played together. They didn't even really know each other because often they weren't even with the team when they were on the injured list. And so that was the biggest narrative, is they just didn't play together. Right, Johnny?
Yeah. And even in the years where, things looked really good, like 2022 is a season they started out really well, just didn't have the good starting pitching that they needed. And so that was always an issue. So if there is a knock against the fact that the Angels did have all these guys on the team, again, only 30% of the total games they could have played together. Even in those 30% of games, they just didn't have the talent to surround. They didn't have the cast of characters you needed. They didn't have the supporting cast. Yeah. So it really was like Trout and the Angels, or Ohtani and the Angels. But right now it feels like the reversal, because now we have this good young cast of guys like Zach Neto and O'Hoppe, and a pretty even team all the way around. But now they really need guys like Mike Trout to be on the field. And of course, he's on the IL right now. There's talk he could be back this weekend, Jeremiah. So that might be good timing for us. maybe bad timing for the Marlins, but it could be the other way around too, because if you mess up the groove that the Angels are in right now with their 7-game win streak by bringing Trout back, I don't know how you could mess that up by putting Trout in your lineup, but
yeah,
knock on wood that doesn't happen. But again, it really comes down to it was the superstar and the C players, and so yeah, to the credit or the non-credit of the front office, just never really did enough to surround those guys with the supporting cast that they needed.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of those Marlins teams with Giancarlo Stanton, Yelich, Ozuna. They never had the starting pitching, and it just you can't compete if you don't have the starting pitching. That's kind of what the Angels reminded me of. I mean, I'm excited for this series, guys. It's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, we're going to have ourselves a lot of fun. Jeremiah, thanks for joining us here. It's been really great. We hope that your Locked On Everydayers over at Locked On Marlins enjoyed us stopping by, and we'll have to do this again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jeremiah.
Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB Game Night. You can find that on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, be sure you give us a follow at Locked On Angels on Twitter and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Whether you're watching or listening, come on over to today's show, get in the YouTube comments section because we'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to pay Jeremiah a visit over on Locked On Marlins and, give him a subscribe, hit that like button because it certainly helps him out as much as it helps us out as well. Mike, what do we have on deck for Monday's show?
We're going to recap the weekend against the Marlins. We're going to have all the details for you. We're hoping that they can win another series. Jeremiah hopes that his team can win a series. We'll find out on Monday what they do, and join us on Locked On Angels.
All right, looking forward to that. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Hey, have a great holiday weekend, and we'll see you back here on Monday.